It's all learning on this channel, and I'm going to be providing you with more information and evidence to explain narcissism to you, which also is linked to the increased probability that Prince Andrew and this one's wife knew each other before she got with Harry. I should warn you that what I'm about to tell you will probably cause you to need a shower afterwards. So make sure that you've got the hot water and your shower gel available, as you are very much want to give yourself a good cleansing after I explain all of this to you. As I have explained to you elsewhere, Prince Andrew is a narcissist. I've detailed repeatedly why that is, and his categorization is that of upper lesser type A somatic. The classic description of a male upper lesser type asomatic narcissist is like a dog with 6 dicks. They are shagging machines. They would bonk a barber's floor. They repeatedly revel in playing hide the sausage, pounding the punani pavement, engaging in a bit of horizontal jogging. The superficiality and the affability that can exist with the upper lesser type A enables them basically to worm their way in with people, and as a somatic narcissist, it's unsurprising that sex is utilized time and time again as that major weapon of seduction for the purposes of controlling people and drawing fuel. Upper lesser type A narcissists can often be rather charismatic, they can be fun to be around, they can be charming. They often have extensive friendship groups. They can also often be quite successful. They are entirely unreliable. They're completely out for themselves. They're often the life and soul of a party, and they can often be full of daring do and are exciting to be around. But you wouldn't want a relationship with them, and you're certainly not going to get a long-lasting one unless you're ready to be cheated upon time and time again. This article by Andrew Lowney in the Daily Mail reinforces the characteristics of Prince Andrew's classification as an upper lesser type A narcissist. It also demonstrates his somaticism writ large, and also, as I mentioned earlier, increases the probability that he and this one's wife engaged in the no-pants dance at some juncture. I'm going to go through the article and point out all of the narcissistic indicators, so it's an excellent learning lesson for you, whilst enabling you to understand just how an odious shagging machine Prince Andrew is. Jeffrey Epstein, for it is he, another narcissist, the most notorious fornicator of our era, said of Prince Andrew, younger brother of the king and at one point second in line to the throne, "We are both serial sex addicts. He is the only person I have met who is more obsessed with pussy than me." Now, as I have made clear in the past, sex addicts are actually narcissists. They are somatic narcissists that will use the excuse of sex addiction as something to blame shift for. Quite simply, their somatic narcissism propels them to use sex to go after the prime aims again and again and again. Having one-night stands, using prostitutes, cheating on people, engaging in orgies, sex parties, you name it. And when these behaviours become problematic, they fall back on the excuse, "But I'm a sex addict, I can't help it." It's a simple form of blame shifting. Epstein went on to state, "From the reports I've got back from the women we've shared, he's the most perverted animal in the bedroom. He likes to engage in stuff that's even kinky to me, and I'm the king of kink." The nickname Randy Andy was given to him at his public school, and earned because he was already sexually experienced, good-looking, and a girl magnet. And it stuck. Naturally, the fact that he was, when younger, good-looking, aided him with regard to utilising sex as a means for asserting control and drawing fuel. When he was the handsome young prince returning from piloting a helicopter in the Falklands War and pursued by scores of swooning girls, for whom HRH stood for His Royal Heartthrob, it was even a term of roguish endearment. Not anymore. Now in his mid-60s, he is supposed to have slept with over 1,000 women. He shagged porn stars, actresses, models, athletes, politicians, and bartenders at clubs, claimed investigative journalist Ian Halperin. This roll call of so many intimate partner, secondary and primary sources is indicative of his somaticism, whereby it causes him to look upon everybody as somebody that he should shag because that's the easiest way for him to control them and to draw fuel from them. He will have repeatedly cheated on the people that he was in a serious relationship with, for instance, his ex-wife, Sarah Fergie Ferguson, because he simply doesn't care. He is driven by the code that has been written with regard to his style of narcissism to pursue sex and to pursue it left, right and centre with porn stars, actresses, models, athletes, politicians and bartenders at clubs. No real discernment, because all that's going on is that the narcissism is saying, fuck her, bang her, slip her a crippler, get stuck in, Andrew. According to a friend, sex is his big thing in life. Travelling all over the world as a UK trade ambassador and for other royal duties has given him access to some beautiful women. Utilisation and abuse of position and privilege, and he's taken full advantage. A Reuters correspondent reported that when Andrew represented the British monarch at the King of Thailand's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in 2006, more than 40 women, 40, were brought to his hotel room in Bangkok during his stay. Often, as soon as one left, another would arrive, it was reported. Hotel staff were used to foreigners bringing in girls, but amazed that more than 10 a day were going to Andrew's room. One 20-year-old model realised how sex-obsessed he was after meeting him at a charity function in the late 1980s and sleeping with him twice at a hotel before being whisked off to the Caribbean island of Mystique. He wanted me to engage in kinky sexual activity, she remembers. He had no boundaries, which of course is a symptom of his narcissism. He told me he had an open marriage arrangement with his wife, likely to be a lie, and is said to manipulate the individual to get them into bed. After returning to London, I never heard from him again. He put her on the shelf. I felt like he used me for a few days so he could live his wildest fantasies. Of course he did. He utilised this person for the purposes of asserting control over her, drawing fuel and getting the residual benefit of getting his end away. Malcolm Barker, who worked at Buckingham Palace, remembered how Andrew was forever dragging the worst bunch of tarts up to dine with his mother, each seeming to compete with the previous for lack of brains. The one characteristic his girlfriend did not like, though, was ample breasts. He was photographed on a luxury yacht off the coast of Sardinia, owned by an Egyptian millionaire friend, having sun cream rubbed on him by a 25-year-old Spanish Filipina model, Alexandra Escat, nicknamed the Totty on the Yachty. He denied any romance, saying they'd been talking about military history. This is the woman who appears in a photograph with Andrew on a yacht and is often mistaken for this one's wife. He entertained swimwear model Monica Jakisic, known as the Croatian sensation, on his 54th birthday at the Italian restaurant Cecconi's, then at the Arts Club in Knightsbridge, and a few weeks later in a private room at the Royal Thames Yacht Club. After she posted a photograph on Twitter of what appeared to be a diamond engagement ring, his press agent was forced to deny the rumour. Nor were staff out of bounds. Lack of boundary recognition again as a consequence of this transgression of the professional boundary. There was a long-standing rumour of an affair with a household staff member when he was still married to the Duchess of York, conducting an affair, lack of emotional empathy. One nanny left because he made unwelcome advances, sense of entitlement, lack of emotional empathy. When I started, an employee remembered, I was warned to stay away from him. He would sometimes enter the staff quarters. It seemed everyone was aware of his behaviour. Note, the upper lesser type A, there's no facade. He probably would walk in, slap somebody on the arse, say, you don't get many of them to the pound, pointing at somebody's breasts, and then guffawing, thinking it was hilarious. Staff gossiped all the time, but a tape device was found in a flower pot in the staff area, so it was difficult to speak after that. According to Emma Gruenbaum, a masseuse at the Wentworth Golf Club that Andrew frequented, he often booked her for massages at Royal Lodge, his home in Windsor Park, but it was always a bit sleazy. It was clear he wanted more. Andrew insisted on being naked, sense of entitlement, and despite her objections, lack of boundary recognition, the massage taking place in his bedroom, he would try and hug her and ask about her sex life, intrusive questioning, lack of boundary recognition. On one occasion, while she adjusted the massage table, he remarked, "Hey, nice arse. Do you take it up the arse?" Lack of boundary recognition. She remembered how all the way through he was talking about anal sex and making anal sex jokes. Lack of boundary recognition, inappropriateness. He asked when I last had sex. Intrusive question, lack of boundary recognition. It went on and on. That's just not normal behaviour for a professional sports therapy session. He was a constant sex pest from the start. In other words, this is a somatic narcissist. He has never had trouble picking up women, but a family friend said he's not a hunter of women, he rather expects them to come to him. Arrogance, sense of entitlement. But when they do, he shows himself to be bone idle, sense of entitlement, and not very socially adept at chatting them up. According to a source, he likes to have his women handed to him on a plate, and the shorter the skirt, the better. Friends acted as matchmakers. Otherwise, he would use his staff. He would spy out an attractive ballerina at the Royal Ballet and then send one of them to the stage door to invite her to meet the prince, use of lieutenants or coterie. Other variations included sending aides to invite girls to his table at the China White nightclub in London, or come to his hotel suite when abroad. He's about as subtle as a hand grenade, again demonstrating those upper lesser type A credentials. His favourite trick is to rub your knee under the table. It's pathetic. At a wedding, he was said to have asked a woman he'd not met before for a dance. When she declined, he responded, "I suppose a blowjob is out of the question then?" Arrogance, lack of boundary recognition. One of his many flings told how their encounters would frequently involve little more than a telephone call from him, a trip by her to an off-licence for a bottle of champagne, a taxi ride to Buckingham Palace, a perfunctory act of love, and a muttered goodbye. But the sad truth about Andrew, one of his lovers claims, is that he's not a Casanova at all. Let's just say that in the bedroom department he's a bit of a letdown. He's been dumped by most of the girls linked to him because he is a bore. Few of his relationships have lasted, partly because he has a low attention threshold, and partly because women quickly tire of him. But of course, ultimately, he doesn't care, because it's easy, as a consequence of the abuse of his position, for him to get a replacement. So he goes through this roll call of different intimate partner secondary sources. Though many have dumped him, when he does so himself, it is ruthless. He simply does not take their calls. Silent treatment, nullification of threat to control by staying in a position of withdrawal. From the start, Andrew's behaviour has excited disapproval. A very slimy so-and-so, arrogant, pleased with himself, was the verdict of one female contemporary from school. He was so full of himself. He'd throw his weight around and often say, "You do know who I am," triangulation with status. Then there were his japes. She remembers camping one November in the grounds of Balmoral, and Andrew, then 18, ripping off the fly sheets of the tents and throwing them into the river for fun, she adds. He thinks he's funny, handsome, and clever, and he isn't. He swaggered around, but all the cool boys of his age thought he was a wally and a tosser. Now, there are other aspects of his upper lesser type A behaviour which I'll be coming to in a separate video. But as this report demonstrates, it's all about the sex for him. A prolific number of sexual partners, that he operates with a sense of entitlement and an insatiable desire for having sex because his narcissism drives him to pursue women for the purposes of controlling them through sex and drawing fuel and gaining that residual benefit. Now, given the fact that he's not particularly discerning, given the fact that he utilises obtaining women from lots of different places, many of which have been described in less than savoury terms, to my mind, this increases the likelihood, given his behaviour and that of this one's wife's background, that the two of them actually did know one another and had had some form of sexual relationship beforehand. It's often been the case that in relation to this one's wife, the allegation continues to follow her around that she was some kind of escort in relation to Soho House and a yacht girl. Her narcissism would naturally utilise such a position for the purposes of using sex to control, to gain fuel and gain the residual benefit of money. That her narcissism would cause her to come within the orbit of rich and famous men. For Prince Andrew, he's not discerning. As I mentioned earlier, he would shag a barber's floor. And therefore, given the company that he kept, the tentacles that were stretched out in order to wrap around individuals to draw them into his orbit, it seems to my mind that there is a good chance that this would have also involved this one's wife, and the way that he's carried on as described in this article by people who've been willing to be named is demonstrative of not only his lack of boundary recognition, his rampant sense of entitlement, his lack of accountability, his haughtiness, his arrogance, his grandiosity, all of the factors that support his upper lesser type A narcissism, but they also demonstrate the fact that it's more than likely that he would have had some involvement with this one's wife, and of course wouldn't have been discerning in that regard. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.